Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we sift through the sources, all the articles, the research, our own notes, and really pull out those key nuggets of knowledge, those insights tailored just for you. Today, we are stepping right into the ring for what is, well, truly a classic heavyweight division debate in big game hunting. In one corner, you've got the undisputed champion, been around over a century, the legendary .375 Holland and Holland Magnum. I mean, for decades, it's earned that reputation, right? The king of African cartridges, the absolute benchmark for big game.
Absolutely. And then in the other corner, you have the challenger, modern, efficient, hits hard, the .375 Ruger. It's, the relative newcomer, but it definitely came onto the scene aiming straight for that crown.
Exactly. So here's our mission for this deep dive for you listening. Is this .375 Ruger a real new champion? Is it actually ready to, dethrone the old king? Or is it maybe more of a really well-engineered solution that's just kind of looking for a problem? We're going to unpack the history, the performance, the raw numbers, rifle considerations, which are huge. And crucially, we're bringing in some expert recommendations, a world-class authority to help you figure out which one really is the best fit for your hunting, wherever that might be. Think of this as your shortcut, to getting really well-informed on what seems like a niche choice, but honestly, it's got big implications. Let's dive in. Okay, so for anyone talking serious big game, that .375 H&H, it just always comes up. It's practically synonymous with dangerous game hunting, but maybe for folks who aren't as familiar, what exactly cemented its reputation? Why was it the benchmark, the gold standard for so long?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. It really begins with its pedigree. It was introduced way back 1912. Holland and Holland, the London gunmaker, its full name, and it's quite a mouthful, is the .375 belted rimless Nitro Express. Thankfully, everyone just calls it the H&H.
Right. Much easier.
Way easier. And the design for its time was pretty revolutionary. It had this long tapered case and that really distinctive belt right there at the base. Now that belt, its original purpose was to guarantee positive head spacing.
Okay, explain head spacing quickly.
Sure. It just means making sure the cartridge seats perfectly at the exact right depth in the chamber. Super critical. It prevents misfires, ensures accuracy, especially back then when ammo manufacturing, could be a little inconsistent sometimes.
Gotcha. And when we talk dimensions like overall length, 3.6 inches, what's that, about 91.4 millimeters?
Right.
Well, the case head diameter, 0.532 inches, 13.5 millimeters. These aren't just random numbers, right? What do they mean for the rifle itself?
Exactly. They're not random at all. That long case, it dictates that you need what's called a magnum length action. So think classic rifles, really robust ones like a Mauser 98 Magnum action, or maybe a Winchester Model 70. These actions, they're inherently longer, usually heavier, and historically, they were more expensive to make than, say, standard length actions. It's just a big cartridge. It needs a big rifle to house it.
But the real proof, it's in the performance, isn't it? The H&H has been the standard for over a century, for a good reason. Standard 300-grain bullet, it's leaving the muzzle around, 2,550 feet per second, generating about 4,330 foot-pounds of energy. So break that down for the listener. What do those numbers really mean out in the field? What kind of game are we talking?
Well, what those numbers mean is power. Enough power for pretty much any animal on Earth you'd want to hunt ethically. Seriously. Biggest Alaskan brown bears, African Cape buffalo, even elephant, it can handle it. And yet the recoil, while it's definitely stout, most people describe it as more of a heavy push, not that sharp, violent kick. A lot of shooters find that much more manageable, actually.
That's interesting. Easier to control, maybe.
Yeah, and professional hunters often say it's kind of the upper limit of what most people can shoot accurately, especially under stress. Plus, that long tapered case design, it contributes to its reputation for just slick, super reliable feeding. And when you're facing dangerous game, well, that's something you absolutely bet your life on.
No kidding. So for a century, the .375 H&H, it's been the one-gun solution for the hunter traveling the world. Legal for dangerous game almost everywhere in Africa, and you can find ammo for it in the most remote places. True royalty. Okay, now let's jump forward. Almost 100 years later, it's 2007, and the firearms world gets a bit of a shakeup. Ruger and Holland, they team up, create the .375 Ruger. Their goal sounded simple, but man, was it ambitious.
Yeah.
Match, or maybe even slightly beat, the performance of the legendary H&H. But, and this is key, do it in a standard length action. So why? Why was fitting in a standard length action such a big deal?
Oh, the why is absolutely central here. Standard length actions, that's the same size action used for incredibly common cartridges like your .3006 Springfield or a .300 Win Mag. They are just fundamentally cheaper to make, they're way more common globally, and they let you build rifles that are naturally a bit shorter, lighter, and much handier to carry and use in the field. It's a really practical thing. It significantly impacts the rifle's cost, but also just how it feels in your hands.
Right, makes sense. So to do this, they designed a totally new case, a really modern design. The .375 Ruger, it's beltless. It headspaces on the shoulder, which is a more modern approach. Simpler, maybe.
That's compared to the H&H relying on that belt. And the Ruger case is also fatter. It has much less body taper than the H&H.
So looking at its dimensions, it is shorter. Overall length, 3.34 inches. That's 84.8 millimeters. But notice the case head diameter. It's exactly the same as the H&H. 0.532 inches, 13.5 millimeters.
Exactly. So by making the case shorter but wider, they engineered this really modern, very efficient cartridge. It actually holds a very similar amount of powder to the H&H, despite being shorter. But the crucial part, it fits into a standard bolt-action rifle. That was a real game changer, manufacturing-wise, design-wise.
Okay, so the big question then, did they pull it off?
Yeah.
Did they actually meet that performance goal, matching or even beating the H&H's power from that more compact case? What did the numbers say?
Oh, absolutely they did. Yeah. In fact, you could argue they beat it slightly. A typical 300-grain load for the .375 Ruger, it'll run around 2,660 feet per second. That produces over 4,700 foot-pounds of energy. And Hornady's super-performance loads, they can push it even faster. So yeah, on paper, the .375 Ruger is definitely a ballistic twin, maybe even a slightly more powerful twin of the H&H, all from that shorter, more efficient package. It was quite a feat of cartridge engineering, no doubt about it.
All right, let's put them side by side then. King versus contender. Ballistics first.
Okay. On paper, like I said, the Ruger does have a slight edge, velocity, energy, but honestly, in the real world, on any animal you're actually hunting, that difference is completely academic.
Completely academic.
Yeah.
So even that slight ballistic edge, it makes zero difference in the field. You don't think there are any scenarios where those extra foot-pounds might matter, even just psychologically for the shooter, maybe?
Look, for practical hunting, no. The difference is just so marginal, it wouldn't change the outcome on game. Both cartridges deliver way more than enough power. Shot placement, as always, is king. So from a pure performance standpoint on game, this is absolutely a dead heat.
Okay, fair enough. A draw on raw power.
Yeah.
But here's where we start seeing probably the single biggest difference between them, the rifle itself. The .375 H&H, like you said, needs that long, heavy magnum action. So rifles chambered in H&H, think like a Winchester Model 70 Safari Express or maybe a CZ 550 Magnum. They are substantial firearms. They often weigh, 9, maybe 10 pounds before you even put a scope on. They're classic, often beautifully made, and yeah, that mass helps soak up recoil.
Exactly. But the .375 Ruger, because it fits in that standard action, it means you can get a rifle like, say, the Ruger M77 Hawkeye Alaskan or the African model. Yeah. That's typically shorter, lighter by a pound, maybe even more sometimes, and often several $100s cheaper than the H&H version.
And carrying that extra pound up a mountain, well, it might not sound like much sitting here, but by day 3.
Oh, it feels like a small car by the end of the day. That reduced weight and length, it makes a huge difference. Okay. Comfort, how quickly you get on target, especially if you're in thick brush, climbing steep stuff, it just makes a difference. So for the rifle itself, verdict's pretty clear. Yeah. Advantage .375 Ruger, especially if you value a lighter, handier rifle, maybe a lower price point too.
Okay, now let's talk about something absolutely critical, especially for the hunter who travels, the globe-trotting hunter, ammo availability. For the .375 H&H, the ammunition is, well, it's truly ubiquitous. Everywhere. You can fly into Johannesburg, Windhoek, pretty much any major hunting hub worldwide. And if the airline loses your ammo, which, let's be real, is a nightmare scenario many of us have worried about or even lived through.
Oh yeah, been there.
The local shop or your PH, your professional hunter, they will almost certainly have a box of 300-grain soft points or solids for your H&H. It's like the 9mm of the safari world.
And that is where the .375 Ruger faces its biggest hurdle. It just is. While it's popular here, readily available in the US, Canada, its global footprint, it's a tiny fraction of the H&H's. Finding a box in, say, a remote Alaskan village may be possible. Finding it in the middle of the Zambezi Valley, highly, highly unlikely. For the international traveler, this isn't just a small point. It is often the deciding factor.
Yeah, imagine showing up for that hunt of a lifetime, no ammo.
Exactly. So the verdict here, it's a decisive win for the .375 H&H, no question.
This difference, this ammo availability thing, it just highlights how much real-world logistics can totally sway a choice, right? And when it comes to those critical, real-world decisions for your hunt, we wanted to make sure you heard from someone who lives this stuff. every single day. That's why we reached out to Travis Weir. He's the owner of Global Hunting Solutions.
Yeah, his insights, they're based on years and years of actual experience booking hunts all over the globe, and he has a really clear way of breaking this down depending on your specific hunt. He's seen it all.
Okay, so let's lay out scenario one. You're planning that classic African safari. You're booked. Hunt of a lifetime, dangerous game like Cape Buffalo. What's Travis Weir's recommendation for that specific trip?
Unequivocally, the .375 H&H Magnum, period. End of story. He says, look, this isn't even a performance question anymore. It's purely logistics. According to Travis, and I'm quoting him here, the single greatest variable you can't control on an international trip is the airline. He says, I've seen it dozens of times. A client shows up, but their ammo doesn't. In that exact situation, being able to walk into a camp in Tanzania or a gun shop in South Africa and just buy a box of .375 H&H ammo, that saves the hunt, that security, he says, it's absolutely priceless.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty definitive for Africa.
Yeah.
Now, scenario two. You're a North American big game specialist. Your hunts are focused entirely here, Alaska, maybe BC, the Rockies. You're after brown bear on the coast or maybe moose up in the Yukon.
Right. Different scenario. Here, Travis Weir's recommendation flips. .375 Ruger. He points out that in North America, that ammo availability issue for the Ruger, it basically disappears. You can find it in any decent gun shop here or in Canada. So with that variable gone, he says, okay, now you look at the rifle itself. And he recommends the Ruger because, like we talked about, the rifles are generally that pound lighter, a couple inches shorter. When you're climbing rough country, pushing through thick alders, just covering miles, that reduced weight and length, it makes a real difference. Comfort, handling, it's simply the more practical tool for that specific environment.
And the bottom line from Travis, which really just sums it all up perfectly, doesn't it? The choice is dictated by geography.
Yeah, he puts it simply. The .375 H&H is the world cartridge. The .375 Ruger is the North American cartridge. Both are absolutely superb performers, he stresses that. But your travel plans, the specific challenges where you're hunting, that should ultimately make the choice for you.
So there you have it, folks. Expert advice, straight from the front lines of international hunting. The century-old king, the .375 H&H. Yeah, it still rightfully holds that crown for the globe-trotting hunter, but mostly because of that unparalleled ammo availability, that logistical security. It's critical. And the modern contender, the .375 Ruger, well, it has definitely earned its place. It's the supremely practical choice for those hard-hitting North American adventures, especially if you value a lighter, handier rifle.
Yeah, this deep dive, it really shows, doesn't it? That while, raw ballistic numbers, they're important, they're fascinating to talk about, but those practical things, like how a rifle handles in thick stuff or the absolute critical availability of ammo across continents, that can often be the real deciding factor in what's best.
That really makes you think.
How context your specific needs, they always define the ideal tool, even when the performance specs look almost identical on paper.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? Sometimes best isn't just raw power. It's about reliability, common sense, especially when you're a long, long way from home. So if you are planning your own hunt of a lifetime, Africa, North America, anywhere really, you shouldn't have to guess about this stuff. We really can't recommend Travis Weir and his team at Global Hunting Solutions highly enough. They can guide you on everything cartridge choice, booking the perfect hunt, making sure you don't have to guess. You can find them online, www.globalhuntingsolutions.com, or you can contact Travis directly on his cell. That's 214-707-5833.
Good stuff. And make sure you join us next time on The Deep Dive. We'll be exploring the really interesting world of low-power variable optics, LPVOs. We're going to critically examine whether they truly have a place on your hunting rifle. Should be a good one.